Welcome to the 5th and final day of the 10th annual SISE conference. This has been amazing. I am really sorry. The American Energy Society has never been part of that, the in-person event. And I'm sorry, Katie, that we missed it. I have a feeling it would have been a heck of a party tonight. I think SISE would have taken over Chicago. Oh my goodness. I'm sorry we missed it. Hopefully we can reconvene, George and Thomas, next year, because I want to party with 10th annual. Oh my goodness.
I have really great videos from 2012 where people were out partying in the streets. So I'm looking at my alumni from 2012.
Yeah, that might have set the standard, but 10th annual, forget it. This group would take them down. It's over. All right, back to the work. Louis, I'll be leading to you pretty soon. So yeah, good idea, Louis. To convey the importance of the maps that you guys worked on, I'm going to turn to Isaac Newton, who once said, "I can see farther by standing on the shoulders of giants." What you've done with your maps, you've built giant shoulders for others to stand on. Now everyone can see farther. The UN identified the Midwest as the most crucial region in the world to battle and stave off climate change. Basically, if we can figure it out in the Midwest, we can figure it out anywhere. Your maps help lead the way. You also have made important corrections to the way people think about and talk about energy. In this age of social media, everyone has an opinion, too many opinions. Too often these opinions are uninformed and lack evidence. Your maps are the evidence that energy professionals need to think more deeply and more analytically. Your maps are helping the world. I've had the honor of taking a sneak peek at your maps, by the way, and I've started thinking about it. And your maps have helped me make some corrections to the biases I've had and have allowed me to actually gain a deeper understanding of these maps. Louis is going to lead us into a much deeper analysis, and George, not only critical thinking, but solutions-oriented critical thinking too. But I'd like to give us just a head start, Louis, if you don't mind. This is my takeaway when I just glanced just momentarily at your maps. Team Des Moines, you shed light on a vital net energy producing region that the rest of the world ignores. Think of how that applies to the rest of the world. It's not just Des Moines. How many other net energy producing regions are there out there that we ignore? Team Indianapolis, from my perspective, I'm starting to think about Indianapolis in ways I never have. You've identified dangerous energy deficiencies, to be quite honest. Team Twin Cities, you've shown us an energy region with great disparities, haves and have-nots, a region out of balance. Team Madison, I call this region the little engine that could. Here's a region that seems to be overachieving. Again, these are just my first impressions. I'm looking forward to Louis, you guiding me. Push back, I'm looking forward to that. Team St. Louis, a region with enormous potential. And again, think about how that might apply to other places around the world. Team Kansas City, it looks like a first mover region preparing for tomorrow's energy today. Team Milwaukee, it looks like a region in search of its energy soul. You're taking us beyond assumptions and to more informed opinions about what we need to do, about how to think about this gigaton challenge. I'm going to start you off, Louis. I'm going to ask the fellows, at least those who are live right now. Some of you are on static mode. Shayna, I see your cat. So your cat's going to get to vote for you, Shayna. I'm just going to do one activity. I'd like all the fellows, here's what I'd like you to do. Use your hand to show me if the mapping project was harder, about what you expected, or easier than you thought. So harder, above, high, about what you expected, easier than you thought. So when you were digging into the map, was it harder? Please put your hands up there. Katie, take a screenshot if you can. Shayna, you and your cat get 2 votes. It looks like Shayna, okay. Suzanne's got it. In fact, she's got it above the camera. All right. Okay, Katie, did you get a screenshot? Do you notice? I don't see, did anybody say easier than you thought?
Yeah, I'm not seeing that either.
I'm not seeing
That's
either.
very interesting. Yeah,
That's good though. That's good.
very good.
It's because it's not easy. Because it's not easy. Lewis, you ready?
I am ready. I'm really excited for this.
Good. They did an awesome job. Awesome job. Go ahead, Lewis. And Katie's going to drive, right?
Yes, to help us show the maps. And I'd love to lead this discussion in 3 parts. First of all, looking over our hard work, these end products, and looking over these maps. And I'd love to ask a few questions about them. Then the second part would be a reflection on our work. And the third part, asking questions of each other and also the leaders of our conference this week about the work that we've done and what we've experienced. But first, I'd love to run through all the maps so everyone in the audience gets to see our hard work. And fellows, as we do this, please think about your region, but also study the other regions as we pass through them. And I have a few questions that I want you guys to think about as we move through them, and then answer them once we get through, because I want you guys to take a look at all of them and think about it. And we're a very creative and intelligent group of fellows. So think about what might make your answer different than what other fellows have to say as well. So the first question, though, to think about is, what does the visualized data tell us? We've witnessed how powerful, well-communicated or visualized data can be, and we've talked a ton about what story is the data telling us. What does it tell us? So think about what the visualized data tells us when we see it in front of us. The second question
Katie,
is...
Zoom in, Katie, into that map if you can. Good, Lewis, sorry. There we go.
Yeah, the second question is, think about the work that you did and your team did, or maybe you live in one of these areas, but what were you expecting after your hard work, or maybe living in this area, versus what are you surprised by when you take a look at this map? So think about that. Does it look empty? Does it feel empty to you? Or does it properly represent the region? Is it more full than you ever thought? And the third question is, where can you see room for improvement? What is your city or region, as we scroll through, where is there room to grow? What are we missing? What colors do you think will show up more and more as we accomplish our goals towards decarbonization or sustainability goals in general? So I'll repeat those 3 questions as we move through. The first one is, what does the visualized data tell us? The second one was, what were you expecting versus what you're surprised by? And the third one is, where do you see room for improvement? So we'll quickly scroll through these maps, think about these things, and also Eric and Thomas, as we're going through, if I could get some help picking out people who maybe haven't spoken before, that would be great. So let's look at these maps. This is Chicago. So take a look at the Chicago energy ecosystem.
And Lewis, you tell me if you want me to pull out a certain map or you want me to point at anything in particular, okay?
Yeah. Just think about the Chicago energy system and then ecosystem, and then maybe we can move to the next one.
All right.
Lewis, 2 quick things. Could somebody post those questions in the chat, and then I'll monitor. You can either raise your hand using the raise hand function, or just say, I have a comment in the chat, and then we can call on you that way.
Hey, Lewis, you're going to go, that's great. And then Lewis, you're going to go alphabetical so the teams can be ready, right? So
Yes.
the teams. All right, Des Moines, step up.
Lewis, we already have comments. Do you want to go ahead and take them, or do you want to wait a minute?
I'd love
Keep
to
going,
look
Katie.
at all of the maps first, maybe.
Gotcha. All right, Sada, keep your hand up.
More.
Katie, can you zoom in some more? Is that okay? Sorry, Katie.
I was just trying to keep it within the region we were investigating.
Yeah.
We can move to the next one.
Well, wait, hey, Lewis, do you mind?
Yes.
Do you want to keep going, or do you want somebody from Des Moines to comment? I'd love to hear what they think. What were they surprised by? What do they wish they saw more of? I'm just curious. Is that okay, Lewis?
Sure, yeah, that works great.
Des Moines, you guys are probably some of the foremost experts on that region in the world now. Truly.
Shreya, are you from Des Moines, and do you have a comment?
Oh no, I was just gonna ask like a general question. I was just gonna say a general comment for like the visualization. I was just looking at it and just seeing how like in terms of like segregated cities, like Chicago too. It's just interesting to see how like you can see in certain neighborhoods there aren't much as energy sectors or like ventures out as spread out as I would have hoped it to be. But I think that was like one of the interesting things I noted. That was pretty much it.
That's good. That's good.
Great comment, Shreya. Hey, Sada, since we're still moving between maps, did you want to ask your question and or make your comment?
Yeah, I had a general comment as well. Coming from the California bubble, I was really surprised to see so many startups and companies working in the energy industry. And I just plotted all of these data points on like which cities have which sectors, and was surprised to see solar and oil and gas was one of the highest numbers.
What do you think about that, Sada? What do you think about those two being so dominant over everything else?
Yeah, oil and gas, I did expect to be big in Midwest, but solar was the highest in, I did some assumptions, but still solar came on top, so was surprised by that.
Would you like to see a wider base? Would you like to see more? Or do you think that we should be concentrating on one? I mean, what do you think?
I'm not very sure because I don't know how to use this data directly. Like we can draw some accurate conclusions from it, but I think it's a good start to help people come to a single platform and collaborate. That's it.
Uh-huh. Hey, Louis, what do you think? Louis, should we, Des Moines?
Yeah, I'd love to see the next map if we could.
Okay.
To say one thing very quickly, I was surprised with Des Moines because Cedar Rapids had quite a bit more than I expected. And although it was outside of the range, we included it because that was an indicator of an area we need to further investigate. So thank you. That was a big revelation for me.
Is there anybody else from the Des Moines team that would be able to say, if you were a benevolent dictator and could make one change, what would you do in Des Moines, in the energy ecosystem? Team Des Moines. Do we have anybody from Team Des Moines?
Can I jump in for a second? I'm from Des Moines. I didn't make any comment in the chat, so I'll just jump in. So when I searched for lighting sector, I couldn't find any. I'm not sure if it's because the most popular industry in Des Moines might be like more agriculture maybe, so that's why I couldn't find any lighting company in the energy sector. Yeah.
And if that's an interesting point, because lighting does contribute to the GHG and energy consumption. They're missing, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay. Good, Louis.
I think Valerie has a hand up.
I was also part of the Des Moines sector, and I was looking more at environmental remediation. And I guess it didn't really come to me that so many companies use energy or have an energy basis. For example, I found something that dealt with mold removal. At first thought, how is mold similar to energy? But at the time, I didn't realize that there's so many different interconnected factors with that, and that each item, although it may seem at first that there's no connection, might actually have something or a clue to something further.
I assume you're saying you'd like to see more, or were you pleased to see so much?
I actually would like to see more. I kind of think that, although this is a really, really good start, and I think it'll be very, very useful in the future, I just think that there were so many different other companies or things that I came across that unfortunately weren't in the area that just because the Midwest is so promising, it'd be really nice to maybe next year or in future sectors have similar communities around the Midwest region. For example, I'm from Michigan, and I would really like to see how different things play into that, and are there connections with Des Moines or Minneapolis or something like that? Just kind of compare. I think it'd be kind of an interesting direction to take.
That's great, Valerie. Thank you. That's really, thank you.
Can we see the next ecosystem? Thank you. So here we have Indianapolis. And perhaps instead of holding on to those answers, maybe if someone from the Indianapolis team wants to talk about or answer one of those 3 questions I posed, we want to move in that direction. What
I
is
could say
the data
something.
analysis? I'm sorry.
I was on the Indianapolis team.
Yeah.
One thing I was surprised about, and maybe you guys remember I asked this question about can we go outside the borderlines, because I just kept stumbling upon things just right outside that yellow line, these NGOs, these farming businesses that were really supporting the city in their energy and their sustainability and their connections. So I thought that was pretty interesting on the power of not being so centralized, but
Rose, that's a great observation. I don't know what to make of that. That's unusual, I think, and I don't know what to make of that. And we'll have to account for that.
I have a thought, and it's like I keep trying to get my parents who have retired to move to Indiana, so they'll be closer to me. But I keep telling them to move close to Indianapolis, but don't move into the city because I know it's going to be too expensive for them. But if they live outside the city, it might be more affordable. So I'm wondering if maybe the reason they're outside the city is because it's cheaper to hold their business, but they're close enough in proximity that they can continue to interact with the urban area as well.
Okay. Thomas and Rose, thank you. That changes the way I think, because my initial was deficiency. Sorry, somebody's talking. Louis, sorry.
Liz, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I was actually Des Moines and couldn't figure out how to say this until Rose chimed in there. So we kind of had an opposite thing going on. My mom's from Des Moines, so I've like spent a lot of time there. And driving around, you can get really rural really fast. So as we were looking for stuff in Des Moines, like Chicago has a lot of suburbs, and like you go a long way from like Chicago city center, and there were tons and tons of dots, which probably more time has been put into that. But like most of what we had in Des Moines was really close to the city center, like a couple blocks of downtown, or like that Urbandale suburb. And then after that, it was like Ames and Iowa City, Cedar Rapids, which are like hours away. So we kind of had a very opposite thing that surprised me, because I expected kind of what Thomas said, that like it's cheaper, it's easier to get like office space, stuff like that. But we did not see the same spread that Indianapolis and Chicago have.
That's great, Liz. Wow.
Any other comments from Indianapolis? Mark.
Yes, thank you very much for these maps. So I actually work in this region, and to answer the first question that you posed, I think just by looking at these maps, you can easily tell what type of energy organizations are dominant in a particular region.
Yes.
And that's also a good indicator of what type of energy services you can have in a region. So for instance, in Indianapolis, you realize that there are so many yellow circles, which are solar energy companies. And I actually collected this data on solar. You realize that most of them are kind of medium-sized companies, and they offer rooftop solar services. So this is something that really made me to think that, wow, it means that there might be a lot of people, a lot of users who are now moving towards solar rooftop or solar home applications, because once these companies are like a lot, or there are many in this region, it means there is a need for their services. That is why they are dominant in that particular region. So I think the map can help to do this kind of analysis for different regions.
Hey, Thomas, that comment, I mean, I was wrong. Louis, I was wrong. This is amazing. I had said dangerous deficiencies. Mark, that's a great comment. It's dispersed. It's more. So, Mark, you're saying it's more promising than you had anticipated. Is that what you're saying, Mark?
Yes, yes.
Wow. I was wrong.
I mean, I have a different comment. So, hello?
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I worked in this region and I agreed with Mark that they have a lot of solar energy system, but I didn't see a lot of biofuels or manufacturing industry. I keep seeing it like outside of Indianapolis, like way outside of it. And I didn't see a lot of biofuels at all. So I feel like they need to kind of invest more on that in that.
Is it, do you pronounce, is it filet?
Yeah, Filati.
Filati. And your point is even deeper than that, right? Because there's, if you don't have what you just said, there aren't as many jobs, right? There's just not jobs.
Exactly. That's very correct. And even the biofuels company that I see, they are also involved in fossil fuels. They're involved in both.
Oh, really? Okay. So if you merge Mark's and your comment, Mark says there's more promise there than he anticipated, but we're lacking that baseline jobs. So it's wow.
Rose, I see your hand up before we move to the next ecosystem.
Yeah, I did a lot of the weird ones that wouldn't necessarily immediately be energy related, like media and just those ones. And I thought it was a lot of fun with, since Mark did his solar stuff first, I kind of was looking into their websites and then seeing if they've done any business with those like connecting stakeholders or businesses. So seeing like, oh, what radio station got solar panels through what solar panel company. So I thought that was like a fun connection just even before the map was made. And I was
so
like,
to those that have spoken, Louis, I'm so sorry. This is amazing. All right, now let's push it even further. Let's just say Biden wins and there's going to be that $2+ trillion injection of money. And Mark, your point about there's potential here, Filati, Rose, would you target this region? Is there potential to make a quick difference that spreads, or do you think you'd say let's hold back while it works its way out? I mean, is there need here?
I think it's worth the investment. I think there's definitely that spark that Indianapolis has, that could just tumble into a great energy power that they can have.
Awesome. Thank you. So here we have Kansas City. So what is the data telling us? The visualized data telling us, or what are we surprised by? Where's there room for improvement? Any hands?
Katie, it's more red and purple than the other places. I noticed. What is red? I don't even know. Well,
Eric, that absolutely occurred to me instantly. The color, and thanks for the visualization question, Louis. The color is different. Yeah. I'm wondering what it means.
Yes.
So it looks like those two are predominantly environmental remediation and oil and gas.
Wow.
And we can do that here.
Hey, George, that changes. Wow.
Yeah. Well, and I'm thinking, how can we use these maps? One way would be to characterize each sub-ecosystem by its interest, and we have that information in the directory. So, yeah. You know, is it primarily, we were talking earlier in the week about its technology, its business, and its policy. So just a simple profile would be which one is dominant in each region. Is it a tech region? You know, is it a business region? Is it a policy region?
Katie, can you do solar while we're, Louis, I really look forward, push those Kansas City team. Can you do solar? I'm just curious if we're doing oil and gas and then a lot of people to clean it up. Right? They're symbiotic, right?
Yeah.
Wow. It looked like Des Moines had more.
Kansas City team, does this feel right to you? Does it feel like what you were expecting when you were the guys you were the folks putting in this data? Does this feel right? Does it feel like we're seeing everything we should be seeing? Or I see one hand up from, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
I'll just start off the conversation. So I'm part of the Kansas City team,
Yeah.
and then answering the questions. So it definitely felt like I was discovering more than I would think I would discover in Kansas City. Because like I have never been to Kansas City, but like after visiting St. Louis a couple of while ago, I can imagine it's kind of like it might be a vibrant city after all. But then like, because I was looking at the environmental remediation and environmental consulting, and there were definitely so many companies that were working in environmentals in Kansas City. And this is kind of like a side note that a lot of them are dealing with asbestos somehow. I didn't look into that more, but it's a fun note to have. And then something that struck to me was that maybe it's because like Kansas City is in between Kansas and Missouri, is that whenever I try to find things in Kansas City, it also leads me to things that are in Missouri, which is kind of far, but maybe it can help to see that there's a connection there. Like if you want to put something in Kansas City, you should see like also things that are in Missouri, St. Louis. But then I think because of the time constraint, we might haven't been able to see like the connections more in academia and like IoT, because I think I only found like one in Kansas City, but I don't know, there might be more. So yeah.
Can you do incubators, accelerators in Kansas City? And by the way, to the Kansas City team, and by the way, to all teams, if any of you are interested in earning some money, an honorarium, I know that Kansas City, there's a sponsor who's willing to pay, you know, a few $100s already to build this out a little bit more. So if you're interested, let Katie or me know. And I think it's, Louis, it applies to all the teams. Every region has somebody there that wants to see more. George, as we know, right, George? So
sure.
There are some honorariums money available.
Very cool. Can we see the next ecosystem? Thank you.
Oh, the little engine that could.
Here's Madison. So some folks from Madison, some gut feeling responses.
Isn't this the Beavers or something? What do they call themselves?
Yeah, something
Badger.
along those lines.
The Badgers.
Badger, Beaver.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Bugle.
Beaver, Badger, whatever. Sorry,
yeah, same difference.
If I could say something here, more ventures were identified than we expected. So that was impressive.
That's cool.
I think, I worked on Madison, and I think, oh, go ahead.
Well, Gabe, I'm so sorry. Can somebody explain the geography? Something's going on with this body. I've been there once. Does anybody from the Badger region? What is going on here?
Eric, I can step in on that. Between Mendota and Monona is where UW-Madison's campus is located, and also where the capital is. And so it makes sense a lot of ventures are centralized in that region.
Now, what do you think about that? Because Indianapolis, they pushed back on our original assumption, said, look, it's more dispersed, and that could be a good thing. It reaches wider instead of concentrated areas. So, you know, there are more winners potentially. What do you think? Is it too concentrated here? Oh, it looks spread out. What is your sense there? And then Gabe, sorry, Gabe.
Yeah, I think that, I don't know, Madison is like 100% a college city. Like it is so oriented around the campus. So I think to an extent, it makes sense to me that there's a lot going on in that area, but I also think that there is a lot of wealth in Madison and in the surrounding areas. And there's a lot of academia, like people who like to stay in the area. So they got to Milton, they got to Fitchburg. And so I think that there's a lot of opportunity for ventures to start spreading out. But I think that just like my understanding of living in Madison, it makes sense that there's a lot around campus. But I think there's a lot of opportunity to spread. So.
Yeah, can I just jump in? I'm also one of the members in Madison ecosystem. I want to say that, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. From the Madison ecosystem, you can see it from the downtown area, then it's sort of a radio system, then it goes to the suburbs around Madison. And when you click solar, you will see, compared with solar and wind, solar is more popular and more focused in downtown area, but there is less wind. And also, biofuel is one of the incoming focuses in Madison. But you will see there are fewer biofuels. Well, why I mention this because Madison has tons of agri lands and they can use those food waste to produce biofuel, but they didn't. So it seems other places around Madison, they need to put more attention on biofuels, and they need to collaborate academia area and biofuel organizations and industries, try to promote more biofuels. That's my thoughts from the ecosystem map.
Yeah, I think that yeah, what the other group members were saying was really important, and especially about like the wind versus solar. I think you know, I was working on wind, and I think that I struggled to find anything within the city really. There's one wind farm that's you know, slightly outside, and I think that partly has to do, especially in comparison to solar, with the fact that most wind is utility scale, and so it's, you know, I think, you know, it's less customer facing, and so you know, solar is going to have so many more of these things within cities because you have a lot of people trying to get that customer attention and engage with customers, and, you know, individual rooftops, whereas wind is oftentimes, you know, a much bigger investment that comes from you know, an energy utility or a larger organization. And so I think it's interesting how that, you know, is obviously influencing these maps, and that we're seeing like a ton of solar. Like whoever said that they analyzed the, you know, the amounts and the data and graphed it, I think that was really interesting. And it's like, I would also be curious to know, you know, with all of that solar, I wonder how much, you know, how many megawatts is that actually, right? Like, I think it would be an interesting comparison to see, you know, because the one wind farm that's, you know, anywhere near Madison is only 6 turbines, but it's already, you know, a 10 megawatt wind farm, and it provides a lot of power for a large company in Madison, for Epic. And so I'd be interested to compare it in different ways, because I think that as I was doing this, I was like, why is there no wind? You know, why are there other things? And it's because in a city, you know, even beyond solar, in a city, a lot of companies are looking to provide services and looking to, you know, that's why they're there. And so I thought that was interesting. I was also really surprised by how the biofuel in Madison was crazy.
Katie, can you do storage? I want to see George's field. I want to see in Madison. George, that's storage in Madison.
Yeah, and that's another thought that comes to mind. There may be obvious gaps in the stakeholders, let's call them, of each of these sub-ecosystems that they don't know about. Opportunities for startups, say, that are, you know, it's just missing. It's a gap. That's an analysis.
It sounds like that's what Ming Xing said too, as well as Gabe, right, Gabe?
It would be great to have an analysis of all the ecosystems. I think the Midwest, you know, everybody would like to know things like that. And how's it going to come out? It doesn't come out except through a mapping project like this one.
Louis, what do you think? Louis, you're taking the 30,000 foot view. What do you think, Louis?
I think that Well, I'm interested. I want to be able to get to all the ecosystems, and I have two, I think, interesting questions regarding where maps can be improved and also what we hope to see in the next 20 years. So I do want to make sure we get to those couple of questions.
I could step in on that, especially on how Madison could be improved. Madison is the capital of Wisconsin, and it also has one of the biggest research universities in the world. But there's a disconnect between the knowledge in the university and the policies that policymakers in the capital make. So I'd be interested in how this map could be a potential bridge between legislators and academia, and as well as community members.
Wow.
Definitely.
Wow.
So
Should I go to Milwaukee?
Yep. Cool. Milwaukee team. What do we see? What do we feel?
Wow.
Some interesting stuff going on.
And for those who don't really know Milwaukee, it's about an hour to an hour and a half north of Chicago. It's about an hour, hour and a half east of Madison, still located in Wisconsin. So just some geographic information.
And the biggest city in Wisconsin.
George, do you notice less red than Kansas City? Do you see that?
Good point. Yeah.
I could make a possible quick comment about that as well, because I was doing solar, and although there wasn't that many solar companies, while I was doing my research, article after article after article kept popping up about how Milwaukee's council, like city council, has been pushing solar like crazy for the past like 2 years now, since 2018. And they just have one of the companies, I believe it was Energis, or it was We Energies. That one actually just got a contract with the city council to build one of the biggest utility solar plants in the heart of Milwaukee across the US. And it was just one of the really cool things that I thought I found out about it, because they've been moving away from oil and gas and trying to push especially solar. And they also have two nuclear plants in Milwaukee itself, and then others that supplied energy, but I didn't list because they were like at least 2 hours outside.
Are we asking too much of solar in Milwaukee? I mean, I don't know. Is that just, should we be focusing on wind? I mean, I don't know the sun. I don't know the storage. Oh, there's more wind.
Yeah, I actually want to say some. Oh, unless you want to talk.
Okay, and yeah, I was just gonna kind of piggybacking off of the last comment. I found that when I was adding in things for storage, and this kind of goes off of We Energy with having things outside of the Milwaukee area. Multiple times I came across companies that supplied whatever it was, whether it was graphene or different materials or storage or solar type of stuff for the city of Milwaukee, but wasn't located in Milwaukee. So there were multiple times where I just had to abandon a potential data point because, they say, yep, we service Milwaukee, but it's not actually within that zone of where we could include on the map. So.
Yeah, I want to piggy off that as well, because I was looking for wind in Milwaukee, and I think I was talking to Gabe, and he said, because he did Madison, and I kept finding things about Renew Wisconsin, which was placed in Madison. So I also think We Energies, they were popping up everywhere on the Milwaukee map, just when we were looking at solar, wind, biofuel, nuclear. Yeah, so I think potential could be with We Energies, but I was personally doing more of the built environment stuff as well. So, and I know I was helping Heidi with the raw materials, and I think there was a lot as well in Milwaukee there too.
And those are jobs, right, Heidi and Amy? Those are jobs. That's good, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's a good base, right, Louis?
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Any more comments on Milwaukee before we move on to the
I
next?
think Christina has one. She's just forgotten how to raise her hand in
Oh,
chat.
okay. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, sorry. I've done it before. I just can't seem to figure it out right now. I just wanted to make a comment. So I am from Madison. I go to school in Madison, but I did the Milwaukee ecosystem. And I really agreed with what Eric said when he was kind of doing his introductory remarks about like Milwaukee still trying to find like its energy soul, like what it's going to focus on. And I also agreed with the analysis that like Madison has a lot more ventures. Like Madison is very interested in environmentalism. Like they're one of the cities that pledged to be net zero by 2050, like one of the first cities. And so I just think that it was interesting when we were creating the ecosystem maps that considering the proximity and kind of the level of relationship Milwaukee and Madison have in Wisconsin, that we wouldn't consider them like one energy ecosystem. Because to me, and this is not to discredit the rest of the state, but like Milwaukee and Madison are like where things are happening in the state. Like they're kind of like our two like centralized points. And so I'd be interested in thinking about them more as like one ecosystem that we could connect rather than these two separate entities.
Oh boy, thanks, Christina. That's a very good point.
Louis, I see your hand up. If you'd like to make a comment real quick.
Oh yeah, and I kind of just wanted to add a point to what Christina was saying with your remarks at the like beginning of this entire conference, Eric, and this morning as well. It seems like the number one thing, as if there's like a gap in an area, then of course like startups, accelerators, incubate, like all those should be moving to that area to try and like build up that area and capitalize. But on top of that, it seems like the number one thing, because a lot of these areas like Milwaukee and Madison kind of have a spread in diverse, selective companies, ventures, etc. And it seems like the simple collaboration between academia and like how the city council of Milwaukee and We Energies are collaborating, and then say like the research being done in Madison and new storage startups for the Madison area. It seems like there needs to be more, and I'm not really sure how exactly to tackle that problem, but there needs to be
Louis, do you mind if I piggyback on what Louis said?
Go ahead.
So Louis, what you're saying is it's almost like each region has its own gaps and needs. And I think this is what all the fellows have said so far at Valdemaps, but every region has its gaps and needs. And it's almost like we need someone to call to arms, say, we've got a gap here. Universities, accelerators, policymakers, focus here.
Yeah, almost like a newsletter going out to like statewide college campuses and being like, if you guys have like, an amazing idea, like Madison is a great place to start for storage or to start for wind. And then moving on to like how we're doing Pittsburgh, you know, just like something that could allow the majority of people coming out of college and like having those new ideas to kickstart it.
Do you realize, so Louis, you're standing on the shoulders of their fellow giants, right? I mean, this is an idea that just keeps going up. That call to arms kind of concept is a powerful decarbonization. We were talking about earlier on Wednesday in particular, what do we do? Much like you call to arms for political activism, call to arms to target these areas. That is a very, very powerful action item to decarbonize. That's gigaton decarbonize effort.
I just want to throw, so I think Louis and Mark earlier, and also Christina, like some things kind of piggybacking off with whole of the area. Louis, you're talking about opportunities. Mark pointed out earlier, Indianapolis, if you look at the solar, it was primarily rooftop solar. And please tell me if I'm misquoting or misdirecting anybody, but like two potential opportunities for using the maps are, first of all, like looking at an area and asking, why is solar rooftop so big in Indianapolis? Maybe there's a reason that no other solar companies have moved in there. And at the same time, for entrepreneurs or people who, you know, want to maybe start a company, they could look at that map and say, well, you know, I want to start a solar company, but it's not going to work here because the market's saturated already. Or likewise, another question that could be asked is, if you are looking for a job and you don't want to be an entrepreneur, but you want to move into a certain sector, you could look at the map and say, well, where are the majority of biofuels companies located in what centers? And then maybe that's where you target your search for work or trying to find new clients or something like that. So that's kind of like getting to that whole, like, Mark found solar rooftop companies were in Indianapolis, so maybe that's the market, or maybe there's a reason there's not solar companies that are not rooftop there. And Christina and Lewis looking for specific opportunities based off the soul of a region, I think is a really great idea.
Thomas, that's really great, because then you could also target the financing groups, the investors, and say, hey, I've done my research, there's need here, right? Let's approach this. That's a venture. Wow. Sorry, Louis. This is
great. I just also say, both Thomas and Eric, you made me think how easy how something like this could make it really easy to propose policy in a region and say, we're as a city trying to push more solar, and as you can see, we are primed to be able to, roll that out easily because of all these companies here, and make arguments to support sustainable policy in that way.
undeniably, right, Heidi? You just point to it, just say, look, right?
And we have one more ecosystem, right? Do we have one more?
We actually have two more.
Okay, two more. All right, yeah.
Uh-oh.
So someone from this team, what do we see? How do we feel about this?
This ecosystem found the most ventures out of all of them.
Woo!
Yeah, but they had the biggest population too, right?
It's true. There's 3.28 million is the population for that area.
Versus the Badger region.
Which is 258.
Beaver region, yeah.
Beaver, don't do
no,
that.
I'm kidding. It's Badger. It's Badger. I'm joking with you. It's Badger.
Gabe, don't do that. Oh, now I'm all messed up. Cats. If I don't know, I'm just going to say cats.
Sorry.
So what do we see, or how does this compare for fellows who aren't in this region or collecting data for this region? How does this compare to the other places? What is the story that the data is telling us visually? What can we see here?
It's a lot going on. It's very condensed. Yeah. I'm actually from St. Paul, so this is kind of what I'd expect, but yeah, there's a lot going on there.
But it does properly represent the idea of St. Paul that you have in your head. That's cool. That's really cool.
So, Shannon, would you say that this is one of those epicenters that could move? You look for leading best practices regions. Is this region ready to really take off and lead others, or do you see gaps? What about your teammates too?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not going to speak for everyone. I'll let someone else have a chance too. But I mean, personally, I've lived in the Twin Cities my whole life. Been in St. Paul the past 5 years, and I think that there's a lot going on. There's a lot of potential. St. Paul and Minneapolis are really making some strides when it comes to clean energy and sustainability in general. So I would say that Minneapolis, St. Paul could lead by example. So I don't know what you guys think.
I see hands now. Raymond, then Aurora, then Drew, please.
I did say Minneapolis and St. Paul, and one of the sectors I looked into was wind. And I was really delighted to find that a lot of the more of the engineering and technical side of wind, a lot of the companies were headquartered in Minneapolis and St. Paul. And I find it very interesting. I'm wondering why. Maybe is it because sort of they got a head start, sort of in the industry earlier on, or is it because they're more central within the Midwest? I think that's something that's worth looking into.
Raymond, that's a really interesting observation. I mean, it's a knowledge economy. If you have the engineers, I'm not an engineer, so farthest thing from it. So but you've got to have them, right, Raymond, in order to do things.
Aurora?
Yeah, something I just found interesting is I looked into the coal sector, and the University of Minnesota, they actually have a coal-fired like generating plant on their campus, and I just thought that was kind of interesting, just because it's interesting. I feel like academia a lot of times leads a lot of like renewable energy and innovation like that. So I just thought that was interesting, that I feel like they might need to make that transition to help the community.
Maybe instead of just coal, maybe pair it with carbon capture, right?
Yeah.
Sequestration, right? Here's another we can target and call to arms, say, you don't get to keep doing that. You need to do something with it, right, Aurora? Hey, Louis, I think Melody keeps trying to raise her hand.
Yes, I think it was Jeroen, then Melody, and then Karan.
Yeah, so I did solar for this ecosystem, and something that I found really interesting is just a specific venture that I looked into, and it's called SunShare. And what they do is they do community sun gardens. So I thought it was really interesting because it kind of makes it accessible to everyone, so they can subscribe to this company and get the benefits of solar power rather than having to install it. So if you're a renter, you can actually get the benefits of solar power, which I thought was just really awesome.
Jeroen, do you see it? Okay, wait, do it again. Jeroen, do you see it? It's right there.
Yeah, that one.
Huh.
That's really cool.
And so I think this ecosystem can be a leader in like bringing that accessibility of cleaner forms of energy.
Jeroen, you'd almost need someone then when you find kind of a hidden gem, you'd need to make sure that others see it, right? It can't be that silent voice. It needs to be promoted, right, Jeroen?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Melody and then Karan, and then I do want to see that last ecosystem and ask just 2 more questions before our time is wrapped up. So Melody, go ahead.
Right, so I worked on hydro, and to my surprise, I didn't really find a lot of companies working on hydropower in the Twin Cities itself, but there were, I found a few outside of the region that perhaps control whatever hydropower station are in the system itself. There's a research lab that does hydropower fluid dynamics in the University of Minnesota as well. And a cool startup to shout out. They're doing modular hydropower, like a small system that you can, it's pretty rugged. You can drop it in the river and it generates some electricity, portable. Wow. Yeah, I'm not too sure how old the company is, but it sounds cool to me.
Hey, Melody, you're raising something that I'm gonna pair up with Shayna's comment. Shayna, that's a brilliant comment too. Missed opportunities of resources in your backyard, right? Melody, you're saying there's a river right through it. Look at that, you can see it, undeniable. And Shayna's saying, there's more there, right? How many times does a region miss what's right in their back? How many times do we do that as individuals, right, Louis? We think, man, I'm missing something, and you have it right there.
Yes.
Wow.
So I was thinking perhaps a lot of the existing power stations right there are pretty old. And I went to this website, hydropower, website, can't remember the name, but a lot of the company names mentioned that did the power station are nowhere to be found. So perhaps they have like rebranded themselves or yeah, it's just missing. that's curious. And also I found a couple of IoT companies that does automation and parts. And then these companies, on like first glance, I didn't realize they have anything to do with renewable energy. But a bit of digging, most of them usually do all different kinds of renewables. So not just hydropower. I mean, hydropower is the one that led me to these companies. Yeah.
Wow.
Thank you. Karan, very quickly.
Yeah, I did utilities and storage, and there were a lot of big utilities that had a lot of subsidiaries which worked in solar and wind, or they contracted with a lot of the community solar farms or the solar co-ops and made basically constructed their solar farms or their wind farms, which I thought was super interesting. Also, there's this one really huge storage project in and around Minneapolis, which is connected to a solar farm, which I think Mr. Crabtree might have touched on earlier this week. And a really cool thing that Minneapolis is doing is there's this waste recovery center, which takes waste and sort of recycles the metal and converts it to energy, like thermal energy, and then captures the carbon. So it's like super interdisciplinary. And there's a cool tech stuff happening in Minneapolis.
Wow, that's cool. That's cool. Can we see St. Louis very quickly? St. Louis, be ready.
Wow. That's dense.
That's dense.
But like what Indianapolis pushed back on me, that's not always means very few people benefit, right?
Right. Maggie, then Gavin, then Aparna, please.
Maggie, you there?
Gavin, go ahead while we figure it out.
Okay, thank you, Lewis. I didn't know what to like look forward to like going into this project, but coming out of it, like I learned so much. I just thought this was such an interesting idea, so I just want to thank you guys for like giving me this opportunity. I did specifically policy, utilities, and lighting, and I also did storage, I think. Basically, the like main thing I want to talk about was like the policy. Like I have no idea about St. Louis, so I came into this blind. So I looked up just basically, I went for the first one, I looked for the Sierra Club, like the Sierra Club St. Louis chapter. I looked for the NAACP chapter, and it was just so interesting to just go through all of their chapters. And I was like looking up everyone's LinkedIn's, like finding everyone, like what they're doing specifically, like the NAACP, like they had so many different type of petitions listed on their website. So it was like instant, like you were getting on that website and you're instantly able to like do something and make like a difference. And then another one that I really liked with policy was, it was basically this like law firm, and there were a group of lawyers who were doing like pro bono cases for people who like were basically they were fighting for the environment, fighting for like nature, because there was no one else doing it in the area. So I just thought that was really cool. I followed them on LinkedIn. It was just really cool to look at policy and like find smaller groups that were just making like big impacts in their communities.
Hey, Gavin, quick question. Do you know on your team, that a couple of other regions were commenting how there are job opportunities, new industries to grow. So it's not, so there's new opportunities for new people. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do you know if your teammates found that in St. Louis, or did they find that lacking? Does that make sense, Gavin?
I totally understand what you're saying. I don't want to answer for everybody, but what I will say is I also did lighting and utilities, and there was lots of companies that were super like have been in St. Louis for decades, but like they had LED lights, solar panels. Like obviously they're integrating new technology in their existing businesses. So obviously there must be availability for like new jobs with new technology. So I maybe wouldn't say like new sectors or new groups, but there's like instilling new technology, which would require new people.
Who else on your team? Just curious. Can you do solar in St. Louis? I'm just curious. Not like others.
Becky, what was your comment?
Gavin, you maybe need to call on some of your teammates. We don't know your teammates, Gavin.
Aparna, go ahead. I'm sorry, we're having a hard time hearing you, Maggie.
Oh, I could definitely speak to that because, so I did incubators and accelerators is one of the main things that I did. And I found so many different funding, like so many different incubators and accelerators that are funding all these startups from so many different sectors. There were only a few that was like this accelerator's just funding startups for biofuels or something like that. But there were definitely a lot that were spanning like the breadth of all different energy corporations and sectors and what they could do. So I think in the next like 5-10 years, I think there definitely will be an increase in all of the sectors, if not just the biofuels or something like that. But I do think there's huge opportunity here just because of the amount of incubators and accelerators that I found.
That's really interesting, Aparna. So you're saying that that's the one sector where if you want to look ahead, that's where you target. Wow, interesting. Yeah. So then you could apply what you've just said. If we went to each region and said there's a deficiency in accelerators, incubators, they're not ready for tomorrow then.
Yeah, so I think even right now, if we were able to like go to these incubators and accelerators and get like a list of what their startups are, like at least what they're focusing on, I think that would be really interesting to include on the map, even if it's just like some guy's garage right now.
Yeah. Wow.
Maggie, I want to make sure you're heard. So if you can, I can't see the chat right now, but if you could at least put your comment in the chat so we can see what that is.
You did. You know what?
Okay.
If I can find it, here it is.
Okay.
Maggie writes, I was surprised by enabling technologies, as well as no overlap in 3 sectors, enabling, solar, and storage. Okay, the intersections, good. The combo and spatial distribution combined to speak to the potential. Lack of ventures east of Mississippi as well. Lack of ventures east of the Mississippi River. So Katie, can you do solar and storage, because there's that obvious intersection between solar and storage. The two need to, and can you also put in wind too, because wind also, there you go. And then let's zoom in. I'd like to see ventures east of the Mississippi. Oh, Maggie, wow. If you think about the future of the decarbonized new energy economy, the future new energy economy, it really is, and that's where George comes in. It's that intersection between solar and wind and stored energy, right? Well, here you have, it's pretty robust, but not east of the Mississippi River. Wow.
Right. Carly, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I do. One of the things I was thinking, so I focused on architecture, construction, built environment, and I was noticing that there were some companies that are headquartered in St. Louis that are international or national or international companies. And so that made me wonder, how much of their location in St. Louis is about impacting St. Louis, and how much of their location is about, real estate prices, and their projects are actually happening in other places. So I was just wanting to kind of keep our minds on the limits of the data that we have so far. And I think knowing from this point where this company is headquartered, what's the actual spread of their impact in that region versus other places would be interesting to investigate.
Carly, that's a really good, we're going to need to think about that, because that is a deficiency. That is the dot doesn't tell you their interests, except I don't know who it was. Somebody brought up Excel and SunShare, And there's a question about interests and motivations to invest in Excel. I don't know if that was in the thread. Hey, Louis, I think we're getting tight on time. Carly,
Yes.
great.
Really quickly.
Yes.
Carly, I hope you made some comments like that in the notes section, because that's interesting. And the same to the rest of you with what you've brought up, because some of these comments on specifically some of these certain companies, that's your editorial voice, and we'd want to know that. So thank you. I hope so.
Yeah.
And Louis, again, you're going to be bringing us on home. But again, any fellows that are interested in digging a little deeper into this, maybe writing up a thought leadership piece, there are honorariums available for you. So, and you obviously see the benefit. But wow, this was way beyond. I knew it was going to be effective, Louis, but wow.
This is really cool. And the last two questions, and we don't have to answer them, just think about them, fellows. The first question was, and I know Heidi's doing some really cool work on it. I was hoping she could talk about it, but one question, after looking at all these and we have access to them, think about how these maps can be improved. What are we missing? How can we improve the actual maps themselves? And share that kind of information with the organizers and our leaders and each other. And the second one was, as we look at these, how do we hope these maps will change, and how do we predict these maps will change in the next 20 years? I was really interested to hear about that. And while I hope that we'll take on more ventures in order to decarbonize and become more sustainable, but my favorite answer that I wanted to leave you guys with, which is what I predict will be on all these maps, somewhere, will be you guys. It will be your business, it'll be your startup, it'll be your nonprofit, it'll be your law firm. And so that's what I'm really excited to see more than anything. As we continue to make maps like this and see things pop up, seeing you guys on the map, because I know it's going to happen. Thank you.